Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Oklahoma Sooners and Brent Venables continue to stay active in the transfer portal, adding defensive tackle commit Phillip Paea. And there were some question marks on what side of the ball he's going to play. In his Twitter bio, he says he's a defensive tackle for Oklahoma football's program. So I think we have our answer to that. As Michigan fans, we know Phillip quite well. He played at Michigan, went to Utah State. Now he ends up in Norman, Oklahoma. Excited to get into it. Going to talk a little bit about what Brent Venables' approach has been in the transfer portal in 2023. Now, before we do it, Jen, just want to say thank you to you guys, the Sooner fans especially. You guys have been absolutely awesome. Whether we're talking recruiting, whether we're talking transfer portal, all the support you guys have shown truly does mean a lot. And Oklahoma has a loaded visitor sheet for the month of June on the high school trail. So we'll also be talking a little bit about that. So stay tuned. Lock into the channel if you do enjoy it. Dale, I'm going to kick this one off to you. Thoughts on Phillip Paea coming to Oklahoma?
I mean, this is pretty much what Brent Venables has spent his whole transfer portal doing, at least to some extent, is beefing up that interior defensive line position. And in honestly, across the whole board of his defensive line, I don't think he thought that was a unit that could play his brand of football and win the way he wanted to win. And it's interesting. You look back to what he did in the 2022 transfer portal window, he really didn't hammer it like he is now. And I am wondering if he kind of found out the hard way, whatever you want to say, but he needs his guys. It's like he was turning over a Lincoln Riley system that was just nothing like what he wanted to play with.
Yeah, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And there was so much of the national media conversation is like, why was the Brent Venables defense so bad in 2022? And I think the large answer to that is what Brent Venables wants to do on the defense side of the ball and what Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley were doing on the defense side of the ball, night and day difference. And Brent Venables used the transfer portal a little bit in 2022, but you take a look at who they brought in and the impact players outside of Dylan Gabriel. Like, there weren't many guys who were productive for Oklahoma in that 2022 season through the transfer portal. Brent Venables trying to switch that narrative a little bit and get more of his kind of guys to play his brand of defense in this 2023 class. And that couldn't be more evident in the sense of who he's bringing in. Again, DeJoun Terry, another 300-pound plus defensive tackle, hammering the defensive line, right? Devon Spears, Rondo Bothroyd, Trace Ford, Deshaun McCullough is probably going to play on the line of scrimmage, Jacob Lacey. You want to make sure for this Brent Venables defense that you have the guys up front to create that havoc, to create the quarterback pressures. That's what Brent Venables had so much success with at Clemson as their defensive coordinator. He's trying to bring that brand of defense and football to Oklahoma, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job in the sense of who he's bringing in this 2023 transfer portal class.
And that's the thing. He wants to play a very in-your-face, physical. He doesn't want to give up an inch. I mean, Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch, they were very comfortable if they would just give up field goals.
Bend but don't break, but they weren't going to take it to the offense.
And you talk about it. They want to play physical. You look at the defensive end position they brought in, big physical players similar to what they had at Clemson. And these D tackles are giants. And I think you've said it best, like, with the way Jeff Lebby plays on offense, which is extremely fast, run a lot of plays, those defensive players are out there, so or a lot. And if you have these bigger defensive tackles, which is clearly the way Oklahoma wants to go, you need probably 3-ish waves of them to keep fresh and get rolling.
I think that's the biggest thing, and not enough people talk about that in college football and where it's going. Is you're seeing these offenses play extremely fast, and you love it if you're Oklahoma and you're putting a lot of pressure on the opposing defense in terms of making them run a lot of plays and having those guys out on the field a lot. What does that do, though? It's also going to put some strain on your own defense when you have multiple drives. Significantly more plays are just happening in the game of college football for Oklahoma than some other teams. You need to have the depth there. When you are 300-plus pounds playing that many snaps, it's important to have like 3 deep. You said 3 deep guys that can come in and be productive. And Phillip Paea is a guy that probably won't be a starter. I don't even know if he'll be on the 2 deep, but he's going to play significant football for Oklahoma because of how Jeff Lebby likes to run that offense and how many snaps they play. To get into the player a little bit, Dill, I remember we were excited about him coming out of high school, 2017 kid. So he's played a lot of football. He's a developed body. What I think is going to help the most for him is those linebackers. And Jaron Kanek, Danny Stutzman, they are going to be able to play a little bit more clean. I wouldn't say Phillip is a guy that is going to be a game breaker by any means, but he's a guy that can eat up blocks, can get behind the line of scrimmage when he needs to. But those linebackers are going to be playing a little bit more free, a little bit more clean, and they're going to be probably the biggest beneficiaries for this Oklahoma defense.
Yeah, and that's pretty fair probably to say about him and Terry.
Yes.
They've got a pretty good crop. I mean,
yeah.
Years, Lacey, Coe, those guys, at least in the spring game, they look like they're some players. So you kind of have your starting probably 2 lines in place right now, and guys you feel can be more of that game-breaking talent or really disruptive. Again, that's not really what Phillip Paea is going to do at Oklahoma. He's going to be a sound player, again, a guy you can roll in every so often when you need to and do his job. He's not going to be a liability, again, not going to probably be a playmaker, an NFL player, but he's not going to hurt you like maybe what you saw a little bit with Oklahoma's depth.
Yeah, when you have to get to your 2 to 3 deep and those guys just can't really get the job done. I think that has been the biggest emphasis for Brent Venables is we got to get depth on that defensive line, and it's been sprinkled in with some different kind of guys. Like Rondell Bothroyd, I think is going to start for Oklahoma. I think he's going to be an all Big 12 kind of guy. And then Phillip Paea, probably a guy that's probably not going to be an all Big 12 kind of dude, but when you do need to play him, I think he's going to be able to get the job.
And I will say, it doesn't hurt that he is probably 23, 24 years old now. He's been in college for this, sixth year, came in and
I think that's the selling point for Brent Venables is, hey, you might not start for this team. This defensive line on paper, it probably wasn't the biggest need for Oklahoma in the transfer portal, but the depth of the defensive line probably was one of their bigger needs. I think Brent Venables experienced that in 2022, and their selling points probably, hey, you might not be listed as a starter, but you're going to play significant snaps. You're going to be able to compete for a Big 12 championship at the highest level. Oklahoma is one of the most historic programs in the country. And I think that's appealing to a lot of guys, especially a guy who Phillip Paea, who is probably winding down his college career, but he's also going to be able to play kind of a meaningful impact for the Sooners team in 2023.
Yeah. And that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what I think it's going to be again.
Yeah.
Not really that guy who's going to make a monster difference, but he just protect, a guy goes down, you don't have to worry. As these young guys come up, and Oklahoma is obviously doing an exceptional job recruiting these younger players.
Yes.
It doesn't expose them early to guys who aren't ready, and that's just again, I feel like a big part of college football. You see these teams get caught out, especially with the way the transfer portal works now, where your depth kind of does get sapped year in and year out because you got the 2 deep guys feel like they're
want to go start.
Starters, and it just won't hurt. Again, I don't think this is a program changer by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just building that pipeline of depth. And
I think that's such a phenomenal point that Georgia gets so I hate to mention Georgia here, but Georgia gets so much talk about how their starters are also good, and they are phenomenal. But why has Georgia won back-to-back national titles? That is the deepest team in college football. That roster is extremely well constructed where if you do have a guy go down or you do need to play your 2 to 3 deep in a game, there's not that big of a drop-off. And you look at other programs when they have guys go down or if they need to kind of go into their 2 or 3 deep, it's not there because the transfer portal really does sap that talent. If you are a good player who's on the 2 deep, you're probably hitting the portal trying to go somewhere else. So Oklahoma, especially at probably the most important spot on a college football roster to have that defensive line, I think they do a phenomenal job getting guys who, again, aren't necessarily DeJoun Terry, probably not going to start for Oklahoma. Guys like Isaiah Coe are dudes that are probably be the starters, but you have that depth. You have the ability to go there if you need to go there. I think this is an addition that probably not going to be the highlight of the weekend for Oklahoma, but it is going to be a more impactful move than I think a lot of people give them credit for. Again, wanted to keep this one short. Another side note to Phillip Paea is as a Michigan fan, and I follow him on Instagram, a really well-liked dude, just kind of a leader, always seemed to have the guys gravitate to him. So maybe that's another element of why you bring in a guy who's a veteran, well-liked dude who's played at some high-level college football. Appreciate you guys checking us out. June 16th, a massive official visit weekend for the Sooners. So stay tuned. We will be previewing that, updating with any commitments. So appreciate you guys checking out the fellas. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.